All right, everyone, welcome to the webinar. In the next hour, we'll be joined by speakers who will share how to tell a compelling story to funders. The session is being recorded and we'll be sharing out the link to the recording along with a resource in the upcoming weeks. If you're just joining us and you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, go ahead and put in your business name and where you're from. So for this session, we want to focus on preparing you for grant applications and update you on grants that are coming soon through the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center. But don't worry if you're not in the Great Lakes Midwest region, there are grants coming out from across the country through other regional food business centers. And we will forward it along, do some introductions, and go ahead and get started. So my name is Jamie Rahrig, and I'm going to introduce to you our speakers and let them take it over. So excuse me, let me start over. So please help me welcome Jane Cajuste, Illinois Program Coordinator with the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, who brings over a decade of diverse experience in mental health and housing nonprofit work, culinary arts education, and small business ownership to her role. Her most recent role was teaching culinary arts at Cook County Jail. She has a strong focus on culturally relevant, people-centered approaches to food justice and aims to promote equitable access to resources, diversify economic opportunities in underserved communities, and reduce barriers for overlooked businesses, growers, and producers throughout Illinois and the region. Outside of work, she enjoys gardening, hiking, and exploring new cuisines. So thank you for joining us today, Jane. And next up is Madelina DiLisi. She's the Food and Farm Network Specialist for the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center within the MSU at Michigan State Center for Regional Food Systems. Madelina has been engaged in local food systems work in the Western Upper Peninsula of our state for years. And she worked as the Calumet Farmers Market Manager, moving on to work as a local food coordinator with Taste the Local Difference. Most recently, she was a farm to school education consultant for the Western Upper Peninsula region. She holds a master's in environmental and energy policy from Michigan Tech University and a bachelor's in sustainability science from Michigan Tech as well. And as I said, my name is Jamie Rahrig. I'm a food and farm outreach specialist with the Michigan State Center for Regional Food Systems and Product Center, and have been in this role for about 6 years now, and I'm excited to help coordinate the assistance programs through the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center. And Julie, would you introduce yourself?
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Julie Jesmer. I am also with the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center, and I'm serving as the Business Builder Grant Manager. And so you'll hear from me a little bit later on what all of that is about. And thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. And before we kick it off to the speakers, Jane and Madelina, we just want to do a little bit more background information about what we're talking about with this regional food business centers. So across the country, the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, has helped to create these regional food business centers. So again, if you're not in the Midwest region, there will be a regional food business center that covers your area. The goal is to help drive economic opportunities across the region, creating a more diversified and resilient food system. Through the business centers, we will provide assistance needed to access new markets, access federal, state, and local resources, and assist small and mid-sized producers in overcoming barriers to market access with a focus on underserved farmers, ranchers, and food businesses. You can see here from the map how the centers have been developed. There are 12 across the country, including a national tribal regional food business center. And if you want to learn more, please go ahead and go on the web and look at the USDA Regional Food Business Center site. And for those of you who are in this Midwest region, you can see here that we're helping to coordinate services in Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin, along with our partners, including Jane and Madelina, who are doing work within their own states. And over the next 4 years now, we'll distribute over $10 million directly to service providers and eligible food and farm business owners. And here's the list of our partners across the region that you can see here: the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, Northwest Indiana Food Council, the Food Finance Institute at the University of Wisconsin, and the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, as well as the Michigan State Center for Regional Food Systems. And you can find out more. Julie's going to put some links in the chat for you to continue to connect further. And through this program, we will offer assistance and capacity building funding, which we call Business Builder Awards, or grants that Julie will tell you more about. I'll pass it to you, Julie.
Yep, there we go. The slide wouldn't advance. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Julie Jesmer, and I'm going to give you just a quick background on the building capacity portion of the Regional Food Business Center mandate. What we're tasked with doing is to provide 3 different areas. One is connecting people in the food system, and that is like coordinating different relationships. We're also providing assistance, and Jamie is in charge of doing that for our region. And I'm in charge of doing what's called the capacity building, and that is the Business Builder Grant Program. We are in the middle of setting it up. We are deep in the woods in processing and figuring out exactly how the procedure is going to happen. It is going to be fiscally managed through Michigan State University, and it will be money that goes out to people in the food system within the region. Phase 1, we are hoping to start by the end of 2024, and phase 1 will be targeting farmers, farm collectives, and indigenous producers or tribal producers. And so keep an eye on our website that I posted in the chat. And these webinars are in one way to help all of the people who are interested in applying for business builders, but it will also be helpful for people who are looking for other grants or are interested in other grants and other funding opportunities through other federal grants or philanthropic grants. And so these webinars, even if you choose not to go ahead and apply for Business Builder at this time, or if you don't qualify right away, any of these webinars will help you move forward in looking for funding for other grants that you may qualify for. So not looking for them actually through the application process. So stick with us. Our goal is to provide additional education to anyone who's interested in looking for funding. And I will pass it on to Madelina.
So I'm going to pass it to Madelina after I share a little bit about just the power of storytelling. So as Julie mentioned, we're preparing for the launch of phase 1 of the Business Builder Grant Program. So the purpose of this webinar is to prepare you for the actual grant application, but also if you're not interested in the Business Builder, other federal and non-federal grants as well. So for the Business Builder grant, the process will include filling out an application that will include answering a variety of questions. Some of these will focus on specific values and how your business values align with the goal of the grant. Next slide, please. So of course, all grant programs are going to I'm sorry, I lost my notes. So all grant programs, of course, are gonna look different. Sorry, I need to reorient myself and find my notes. So all grant programs are gonna look different based on the funder and their goals, but most grants will require you to fill out an application. So within the application, you're going to provide key technical information like your business name, your background. You may ask to provide a budget, a timeline, a clear project description. And although these facts and figures are extremely important, on their own, they typically are not going to be enough to have your application stand out. Just remember, for most grants, you're going to be in competition with everybody else who's applying for the same grant. So funders are looking for a little bit more information than just the technical stuff. They want to make sure that beyond ensuring that your project aligns with their goals and their values, they want to be able to connect with your story and understand the why behind your project. And the place where you would do that is within the grant narrative. So like, as I stated, each grant program is going to look different. Therefore, each narrative is going to vary. So what is a grant narrative? For those of you that are doing this for the first time, a grant narrative is simply the story that you're telling by answering these questions that the funder is asking, that's explaining what is your project, why is it important, what impact is it going to have, who is it going to benefit, and most importantly, what you want to do is explain how it aligns with the funder's goals and values. This is your chance to let the funder know not just about the facts, but also the passion and the purpose behind your project. So you want to make sure when you're answering the questions within the grant narrative that you're meeting all of the technical requirements, but you also want to make sure that you're leaning into effective storytelling techniques in order to stand out. And effective storytelling gives you the opportunity to showcase your values and your vision. It helps you stand out from other applicants, and it's a way for you to foster an emotional connection with the folks that are reviewing your application. And it makes your project feels more real and more personal beyond just the numbers and the data that you're sharing within the application. It's gonna humanize your application and make it more memorable, giving it like life and the ability to stand out. And those are the applications that people are going to remember, that they'll want to fund. Remember that whoever's reviewing your application, they don't know your business as well as you do. So it's within the grant narrative that you have an opportunity to use your words to paint an effective picture so that your story kind of like grabs them and jumps across the page. I'm going to pass it along to Madelina, who is going to share a few more tips about writing a strong grant narrative.
Thank you for that, Jane. That is some really great advice. And before we dive in for some tips, we do have a little survey. I think it would be great just to see where everybody's sitting with their experience when it comes to writing a grant narrative. So Jamie, if you could pop that up, thank you. So yeah, you can answer by saying, none, I'm new to this. Some, you've written a couple grant narratives. Maybe you've been awarded, maybe you haven't, or maybe lots. You are great at this, and it's your jam. So if you can just vote on this real quick, that'll give us a good idea as we're going through this and as we do more education in the future to see what gaps we need to fill.
It's looking good. Looks like almost everybody's responded. Are you able to see the results, Madelina?
I'm not, of course.
No? Okay.
But that's okay.
It looks like we have 39% none, I'm new to this, 58% some, I've written a couple, and 3% lots, this is my jam.
Wow, awesome. Okay, cool. So hopefully everything that we talk about today will resonate with you at some level, no matter where you're at. We're going to start off with some tips. And so when writing your grant narrative, you will want to avoid making these common mistakes. We can't say it enough. Do not wait until the last minute to start your application. Make sure that you give yourself enough time to write, revise, and edit. Don't breeze through the instructions and grant requirements. Do read all of the prompts and requirements carefully. The first thing that reviewers are going to do is check to make sure that you've completed the application in its entirety. Don't ignore the funder's goals. We know that your business has many needs, but it has to make sense in the context of the grant. As Jane said, don't focus only on statistics and numbers. While this is great, you want to make sure that you're using your voice and you're incorporating your personal experiences and values. Don't be afraid to ask for help. We really, really recommend getting feedback from your peers or someone outside of your business. And if you have specific questions, know who to contact within the funding organization. There's usually a contact person or a general email for questions. Okay, this point has been coming up a lot lately. Don't use AI to write your grant narrative. So there's a common misconception that reviewers are only screening applications for buzzwords. So in theory, using AI can help your chances of using all of those buzzwords. And while this is true, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a better narrative. When you use AI, you're losing your unique voice. Your application is going to be reviewed by real humans for the Regional Food Business Center. And I can tell you right now that they're going to care more about the meaning of your story, and they're going to care about the values, not how many buzzwords you can fit in. So with that in mind, do feel free to use technology as a tool to improve your writing. There are a lot of free extensions and resources online. You can use things like Grammarly, which can help you with spell check, sentence structure, and grammar. If you are trying to figure out how to cite something, statistics, there is the Purdue OWL, and we will send these out in our resource sheet as well. So it's not, don't use technology at all. It's just use it as a tool so we don't lose your voice in it. And finally, don't waste your precious time, please. Make sure that you're reading all of the resources that are available through funders. This is going to help save you time so you're not waiting back on an email for a question that's probably already been answered. Okay, if this is your first time writing a grant narrative, don't be intimidated. You can follow these steps to help keep you on track. Again, read through all the instructions and make sure that the grant is really a good fit for your project. Next, write a messy first draft or do a brain dump. So all you have to do is just get something down on paper. You know your business, you know your needs, just get it all out there. And then you can go back with fresh eyes and revise your messy draft. This is where you can start to work in the necessary content that grantors and funders are going to want to see. And you can also add supporting details and data like your statistics. The next step would be to review your work, preferably with a friend or a peer. Now, this is a really important step because while you're the expert in your field, you're the expert in your business, you have to think that there's people that are reviewing your application that might need more context. They might not understand why you need this tractor attachment and how that, connects with the goals of the grant. They might not even know what it does. So how does your narrative sound to somebody that is outside of your business or your niche? And finally, refine. So take that feedback that you've gotten, double check that you've really answered all of the questions that funders are asking you, and ask yourself, did you demonstrate that your values and your mission align with the objectives of the grant? That's really important. Okay, So now you can use really whatever writing process works best for you. If what we outlined before doesn't make sense, that's okay. But you're going to want to make sure that you're thinking about the content. The content of your narrative will vary depending on the grant, but you can usually count on having to be able to answer the following questions. So if you can answer the what, the when, the who, the where, and the why, really before any application is released, then you're going to have a really good starting point. These are things that funders pretty much always are going to want to know. So if you have this information ready and available, then you're already ahead of the game. Now that you have an idea of what content you'll need, ask yourself this. Can you explain how your project connects to the goals of the grant? You might have an incredible project, but if your narrative doesn't connect to the overall goals of the grant, then it's just not going to make sense for funders to invest in your project. So let's practice framing your narrative for funders together. So imagine this. You are a small farmer that has been steadily selling at your local farmers market. You're ready to start selling maybe at your local co-op and a local school. You're applying for a business builder award, and one thing that you really want to purchase is a wash pack. Okay. One of the main goals of the Great Lakes Regional Food Business Center is to increase market access. So how will a wash pack meet this goal? Let's break it down. So maybe in your messy first draft, you start with, I will use this funding to buy a wash pack to improve food safety on my farm. Okay, that is not bad, but it's not great. So how can we improve this? Funders want to know how this is going to lead to increased market access. All right, so this is where we kind of get to revising. Let's try, I will use this funding to buy a wash pack to improve food safety on my farm, which will better position me to sell to local markets and institutions. Okay, we're getting there. That's better. You're starting to make the connection to the goal of market access. You are explaining why you want a wash pack. But if we really want to take this to the next level, let's be more specific on how this will help you expand your markets. How do we tie this back to your values as well? So then we end up with X dollar amount, however much, whatever you're requesting is, will go towards a wash pack to improve my farm's food safety operations, which will allow me to start selling to buyers with more stringent food safety rules, such as local retailer and local institution. Not only will this purchase help me access 2 new markets, it also has the opportunity to increase food security in my community by providing more affordable produce where there is statistically a significant lack. So let's break this down. First, we are specifying the dollar amount from your budget. So that's great. You're working in your budget into your grant narrative. Second, you are identifying not only how this will improve market access, but you're identifying tangible buyers or markets that a new wash pack will help you access. And finally, you are identifying another goal, which is meeting the needs of your community. You can tie this back to statistics or data that you provide while showing that there is a need. So in this statement, you're showing funders that by fulfilling this request, there's a specific gap or issue that you're addressing. Now, listen, I know that this is a simplified example, but hopefully you get the idea. With each request in your project, can you demonstrate the impact, the need? And will this further the goals of the funders? In other words, make it make sense, right? You want to be funded and they want to fund their goal. So how do you connect the dots and meet in the middle? Okay. So now we've discussed why storytelling is important and some tips for writing a strong grant narrative. I'm going to pass it back to Jane as we highlight 2 businesses that illustrate the power of having a strong grant narrative.
All right, thanks, Madelina. So one business I would like to highlight is Phoenix Bean. They are the oldest tofu manufacturer in Chicago, in the Edgewater neighborhood. The current owner, Jenny Yang, purchased the business from its retiring owners in 2006. She has a really wonderful story. Her and her husband and her 2 children lived right in the backs of Phoenix Bean's small factory shop in Chicago's Edgewater neighborhood and had been a longtime customer of Phoenix Bean. So when she found out that the business was closing, that inspired her to buy the business. They still produce some of the same products they did since the 1980s. Now, Phoenix Bean has expanded its product line and supplies many restaurants, grocery stores like Whole Foods, H Mart, Edgewater Produce, and can also be found at 10 local farmers markets across the city. Next slide, please. So in 2023, Phoenix Bean was the recipient of the GFPI Community Fund. The GFPI Community Fund is a grant that's administered by the Chicago Food Policy Action Council. The grant funding comes through the American Rescue Plan Act funding and also support from the Rockefeller Foundation and the Builders Initiative. The first annual grant provided flexible funding for eligible farmers, food producers, food organizations, and businesses based within a 250-mile radius of Chicago, with flexible grant funding from $40,000 to $80,000. Next slide, please. Phoenix Bean received a total of $42,000 from the 2023 Community Fund. So I just wanted to share some specifics from the fund just to give you an idea of how the owner was able to use some of the tips and tricks that we highlighted in the previous slides to win this grant. So just a few facts about the Community Fund application. It had a total of 35 questions, but most of the questions were basic business background information. 12 of those 35 questions were narrative questions that were specifically focused on what the community fund values were. So local economies, sustainable practices, fair labor, animal welfare, nutrition, and equity in the Chicago food system. Next slide. So one of the questions that really kind of like sums up what the community fund is about, I wanted to highlight that and also highlight and illustrate the way that Phoenix Bean did a really great job of answering the question and tying everything back to the values. So the question is, briefly describe how your organization or business is aligned with the Metro Chicago Good Food Purchasing Initiative's mission to foster a more transparent and accountable food system that equitably produces and provides access to healthy, fair, sustainable, humane, and local food. I won't read her entire response, but I'm just gonna share the ways that she was able to illustrate how her business was in perfect alignment with the grant. So she focused on the 4 values that her business had actually implemented. So that's local, sustainable, nutrition, and community. So with local, she highlighted that she was sourcing her soybeans directly from Illinois farmers. For sustainable, she spoke about how I'm sorry, y'all, my dog is misbehaving and I need to move to another room. I apologize.
We all have that home life. that-
No problem, Jane. We're doing great.
They know when something's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so she had an opportunity to answer this question in 400 words, but I won't read her entire response, but how she illustrated those 4 values is that she highlighted where she was sourcing her soybeans from, which is 2 Illinois farmers. She talked about the use of energy efficient equipment. She also repurposes her food waste by giving it away to community members and also gardeners who use it as compost, and back to those same farmers who use it as animal feed. She talked about the value of nutrition, where her company is really focused on creating healthy and nutritious products for her community. And then she highlighted the way that she gives back to different organizations, including food pantries, 2 organizations that she mentioned within the application, and also her participation in many local fairs and farmers markets to strengthen the local community. Next slide. Okay, so the bullets on the slide just like further illustrate how within the grant application, Jenny really gave concrete examples. When she was answering the questions, she was not vague. She was very specific in how she was sustainable in her practices, how her business had community and local impact. She gave concrete examples. One of her quotes within the application, she added, "We can stay local here in the community. Most of my workers live in this area. Their kids go to school here. They drop them off and come to work. At the end of the day, they pick up their kids from school and go home together. I really like that." This is another quote, but it's a quote from one of the community fund grant reviewers. And they said, "Phoenix Beans stood out for its deep commitment to community values, sustainable practices, and clear alignment with the goals." Next slide. And the reason she was able to stand out from other applicants is, in addition to meeting all of the technical requirements and using data and facts, she leaned very, very heavily on emotional storytelling to back up that data. And in each of those 12 questions, she made sure that she tied the values in the mission back to the funding goals with concrete examples of what the business was doing, therefore illustrating the why. Next slide. Oh, before you go to the next slide and I pass it off to Madelina, I just wanted to share that Phoenix Bean's story is an example of a business that technically was already doing pretty much most of the things that the grant program was focused on. So she was a perfect fit from the beginning. So she was lucky in a sense that mostly what she had to do within the application was like tell her story. But that didn't mean that because her business was already doing these things that like she would instantly get the grant. So if you find that this is the case for you as a business owner, you find a grant and you're like, oh, they're talking about me, they're talking about my business, I'm doing these things, you should still make sure you're following all of our tips and reading the application thoroughly and making sure that what you're talking about is indeed in alignment with all of the values of the grant program. So I'm going to pass it to Madelina, who has another example of a business that was able to do this.
Thank you so much, Jane, for sharing that story. We've got another one here with Whispering Wild Farm Market, who is another amazing example of how you can use storytelling and strong writing skills to get your grant funded. So Whispering Wild Farm Market is located in Toivola, which is in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. It's owned and operated by Gina Kerr with the help of her husband Joshua and her 3 children. Gina was a massage therapist for 20 years in Arizona when she took a leap of faith and moved to the UP and started growing. Her initial goal was to have a sustainable homestead to feed her family, but she quickly realized that there's a demand for local food in her community. When I was talking with her to understand more about, her experience with grant writing, and why she started farming, she said, "We just can't grow enough up here. I could double everything and it would still not be enough." So this demand really pushed Gina's dream into a new direction. And since 2017, she has expanded her farm every year, growing more and doing more. This includes selling a variety of fresh vegetables and pasture-raised Berkshire pork. To keep up with the demand, she's expanded her farm's market avenues by selling at 2 farmers markets, fulfilling a 20-member CSA shares, and participating in multiple food access programs, both locally and statewide. So as demand grows, so do the needs of your business. Gina sought out grant opportunities to help sustain the growth of her farm. Most recently, she won a NC SARE award for her project titled Demonstration of Low Impact Tractor Cultivation in a Regenerative Model to Increase Production Using Equipment Sharing on Multiple Farms. In applying for this grant, Gina was awarded several tractor attachments to increase productivity and sustainability on her farm. Through her grant narrative, Gina was able to identify how this would increase sustainability not only for her, but for other farms in the area as well. The attachments that she was awarded increased environmental sustainability by being low impact and supporting regenerative agriculture practices. But she was also able to argue how this impacts other pillars of sustainability as well, such as economic, community, and health. The tractor attachments allow for increased productivity, which saves her time and money, but not just her. The community benefits from this in 2 ways, through the other farms that are sharing equipment and through increased food available in rural areas where food insecurity is prevalent. And finally, this allows her to sustain her physical health. Farming is such a physically intensive job. So anything that reduces repetitive tasks that lead to injuries is another way to make farming a truly sustainable career path. So this was Gina's approach. Gina utilized a brain dump method where she took everything and threw it at the wall to see what would stick. She was adamant in her research, so she researched SARE's website, their social media, and reviewed all of the grant requirements. And she also looked at past awards to build off of that knowledge and make sure that she knew exactly what the funders were looking for. Whispering Wild Farm Market's mission statement and values were aligned with the grant, elaborating on sustainability throughout. And Gina was able to successfully answer the what, when, who, where, and why. Gina was able to demonstrate the community need and impact that would come from her being awarded. So she was really able to build her story and her narrative on the fact that she lives in a rural area and food insecurity is really prevalent. And finally, with all of this, she was able to communicate the urgency behind her project. So, why fund it now? Why is this important to do now? She was able to express that it was timely and that it would have an immediate payoff, not only for her farm, but also neighboring farms and her community who would now have increased access to produce. And now I want to leave you with some award-winning advice from Gina to wrap up this webinar. Build your narrative so it comes full circle. Remember your mission statement, remember your goals, and remember that funders have goals too. Make it come full circle, make it work. Thank you so much. I'm now going to pass it off to Jamie, who's going to discuss some next steps to help you prepare for your next grant application. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madelina, and thank you, Jane, too. Those are great success stories to share, and having tips come directly from the Phoenix and farm, it's really helpful to try to put it all into perspective. So we are getting to the end, so we will have time for questions. Please continue to put any questions that you have in the chat. And next steps from me will be to send out a link to the webinar recording and the resources to accompany the information that was shared today. So look in your email for that. And we'll also post it to our website. So if you weren't able to attend live or you want to go back and look at it, it'll be available there on the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center site. Also, please keep looking out for in your email box now that we are all connected for updates on assistance programs that are coming out. And you can also access previously recorded webinars that we've done to try to help prepare you all for grant applications. And we do have a few grants that are either opening or open right now for you to know about. In Michigan, the Michigan Good Food Fund Seed Awards will be opening up in the next few days. I say later this month, in the next few days, as well as the Good Food Purchasing Community Fund that Jane had talked about is open right now, right, Jane?
Yes.
Yes. And then there's a national grant opportunity through a program called Growing Justice. So maybe Julie has a chance to put some of those links in the chat for you, and I'll make sure that those go out too with the follow-up email. Some of these will be closing soon, so don't wait for my email. If you're interested, please get in online and check it out. And to wrap us up, if you could please check out our QR code and tell us how we did on just a very short few question survey, and let us know if there's anything else that you are really hoping that we will be able to provide more education on in the future. Otherwise, any questions to keep us going here? All right, I am going to stay on, but I'm going to end the recording. Pause the recording for now.